Jai Sri Ramakrishna. I am Aanandhakrishnan speaking. Regarding the life and teachings of Sri Ramakrishna, I don't have one little word of my own to utter, not one infinitesimal thought of my own to unfold, but everything, every single thing which I am going to quote from my memory to the best of my ability in a cogent manner, came from the mouth, the heart, and the soul of Swami Vivekananda during the course of his speech at New York in the year 1936 in connection with the Sri Ramakrishna centenary celebrations there. To quote Swami Vivekananda, on February 18, 1836, was born in a wayside village near Calcutta a godman who has come to be known as Sri Ramakrishna. The life of Sri Ramakrishna, though devoid of spectacular events, is filled with spiritual romance of the rarest type. The 51 years of his mortal existence give us vivid stories of religion in practice. During these years, he constantly lived on the exalted plane of God consciousness. The natural tendency of his mind was to soar above the phenomena of the world. It seems to the reader of his biography that he brought down his mind with utmost difficulty to the ordinary level in order to talk with men and women. His sayings are not those of a learned man, but pages from the book of life, written with the fluid of his own experiences and realizations. His utterances have upon them the badge of authority. Sri Ramakrishna's father was full of piety and never deviated from the path of truth. He was dispossessed of his ancestral house and property, as he refused to bear false witness to the advantage of his landlord. He observed all the strict disciplines of the life of a Brahmin and devoted most of the time to prayers and meditation as enjoined by his religion. He was content to lead a life of utter simplicity, practically depending upon God for his daily food and other necessities of life. The mother was full of womanly grace, and her heart overflowed with the sweet milk of kindness for her neighbors. Many a time she would turn over her own meal to the poor and needy, and thus starve for the whole day. She was always respected by the villagers for the crystal sincerity of her character and the total absence of guile and other sordid traits of worldly nature. Sri Ramakrishna, like other lads of his age, was full of fun and life, mischievous and charming, with a feminine grace he preserved to the end of his life. During the period of his childhood, he showed a deep understanding of the deeper mysteries of the spiritual realm. He manifested supreme indifference to the education imparted in the school. He did not proceed beyond the most rudimentary stage. He used to say later on that books are fetters which impede the free expression of the soul. But even at that early age, he possessed great wisdom. One day during that period of his life, he gave in a learned assembly of the Pandits a simple solution to an intricate problem of theology which had been puzzling the brains of those astute bookworms. This profound wisdom, uttered in simple words and coming directly from his soul, characterized all his later sayings. The soul is the fountain of all knowledge and wisdom, but in the commonality it is covered by a thick pall of ignorance created by our so-called experiences of life. But simple and artless saints like a Christ or a Ramakrishna always have had access to this perennial fountainhead of knowledge. Sri Ramakrishna took special delight in studying and hearing about the great heroes and heroines of the Hindu religious epics. Stories of saints and association with them would always set his imagination on fire and created an exalted state of mind. He often played truant from school. The simple village had an extensive mango grove where he would repair with his schoolmates and enact dramas, selecting episodes from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The boy with the fair skin, beautiful flowing locks, charming voice, and independent spirit would always play the leading parts. At the age of 9, Sri Ramakrishna lost his father. This event, which cast a gloom over the whole family, made the boy more thoughtful and serious. Now and then he was found strolling alone in the mango grove or the cremation ground. His serious nature, though hidden under the thin film of boyish merriment, perhaps got a glimpse of the transitoriness of human life. Instinctively, he shrank from objects and ideas that might prove obstacles to his future spiritual progress. His first spiritual ecstasy was the outcome of his innate artistic nature. Observing the flight of a flock of cranes with their snow-white wings shining against the background of the sky covered with dark rain clouds, he lost physical consciousness and said afterwards that he had felt in that state an ineffable peace. More than once during his boyhood, Sri Ramakrishna experienced the bliss of spiritual ecstasy evoked by the contemplation of divine thoughts. At the age of 17, Sri Ramakrishna came to Calcutta, then the metropolitan city of India, where his elder brother conducted a Sanskrit academy. To the earnest request of his brother to continue his studies in keeping with the tradition of the Brahminical ancestry, the boy made the spirited and significant reply, "Brother, what shall I do with a mere bread-winning education? I shall rather acquire that wisdom which will illumine my heart, and on getting which one will be satisfied forever." The life of Sri Ramakrishna took a new turn when he was engaged as a priest in a temple where the deity is worshipped as the Divine Mother of the universe under the name of Kali. Seated before the graceful basalt image, he would often ask himself, is this image filled with the indwelling presence of God, or is it mere stone, devoid of life and spirit, and worshipped by countless devotees from time immemorial? Now and then a kind of skepticism would creep into his soul and fill his mind with intense agony, but his inborn intuition revealed to him the evanescent nature of the objects of sense enjoyment and the presence of a deeper reality behind the phenomena. He conceived of God as our eternal Mother, who is ever ready to grant us the priceless boon of divine wisdom if we only turn our gaze from the shadowy objects of this world. For a few days he worshipped the deity, following the rituals and ceremonies of his ancestors, but his was a soul not to be satisfied with a mere mechanical observance of religion. He craved for the vision of God. Soon before the onrush of his fervour, formalities of religion were swept away. Henceforth his worship consisted of the passionate cry and prayer of a child pained at the separation from his beloved mother. For hours he would sing the songs composed by seers of God. Tears then would flow continuously from his eyes. He would weep and pray, "O Mother, where art thou? Reveal thyself to me. Many devotees before me have obtained thy grace. Am I a wretch that thou dost not come to me? Pleasure, wealth, friends, enjoyments, I do not want any of these. I only desire to see thee, Mother." He spent day and night in such agonizing prayer. Often people would be amazed to see him rolling on the ground and rubbing his face against the sand with the piteous wail, "Another day is spent in vain, Mother. for I have not seen thee. Another day of this short life has passed, and I have not realized the truth. In another mood, he would sit before the deity and ask her, art thou true, mother, or is it all a fiction of the mind, mere poetry without any reality? If thou dost exist, why shall I not see thee? Is religion then a fantasy, a mere castle in the air? Scarcely would these words pass his lips when in a flash he would recollect the lives of the saints who have actually seen God in this life. No, she cannot be a freak of human imagination, the young worshipper would think, for there are people who have actually seen God in this life. Then why can't I see her? Life is passing away. One day is gone, followed by another, never to return. Every day I am approaching much nearer to death, but where is my mother? The scriptures say that there is only one thing to be sought in this life, and that is God. Without Him, life is miserable. It is a mockery. When God is realized, it has a meaning. It is a pleasure, a veritable garden of ease. Therefore, in pursuit of God, sincere devotees renounce their lives and sacrifice their lives. What is this life worth if I am to lead a miserable existence from day to day without tapping that eternal source of immortality and bliss? Thoughts like this would only increase his longing and make him redouble his efforts to realize God. As a consequence, he was blessed with the vision of God. Regarding this God vision, he said to Swami Vivekananda, "Yes, my child, I have seen God only more intensely than I see you. I have talked to God only more intensely than I am talking to you." Sri Ramakrishna used to emphasize that if an aspirant shows the same attachment to God as the miser feels for his hoarded treasure, the devoted wife for her beloved husband, and the helpless child for its affectionate mother, God is sure to reveal Himself to such a fervent soul in 3 days. The first impression even a casual reader of the life and gospel of Sri Ramakrishna gets is that God is not, after all, an unrealizable object living behind the clouds, but is our dearest and nearest possession, in whom we live, move, and have our being. There is truly such a thing as God realization in this life. Purity became the very breath of his life. Nothing could persuade him to deviate, even by a hair's breadth, from the path of truth in thought, word, and deed. To learn humility, he would go to the house of an outcast at dead of night and clean the dirty places with his long hair. He knew that the two great impediments of spiritual life were lust and gold. He looked upon all women as the manifestation of the Blessed Mother of the universe, and his body would wriggle in pain if he touched a coin even in sleep. As a result of deep discrimination, he could not see any difference between gold and clay, and found them both equally worthless for the realization of truth. Absolutely trustful of the divine providence, who hears even the footfall of an ant, he lived from moment to moment, totally depending upon God, and without worrying as to what he should eat and drink the next day. His life became a perfect example of resignation and self-surrender to a higher power who ever cares for our needs. His entire physical and nervous system became attuned to such a high state of consciousness that any contact with objects or ideas of a worldly nature would give him a strong reaction of pain and suffering. His zeal for the vision of God which ate him up day by day, beggars all description. In his spiritual pursuits to see God, he gave up food and drink as necessities of life, and sleep he left out altogether. The friends and relatives of Sri Ramakrishna, unable to realize the meaning of his God intoxicated state, thought that he had fallen a victim to lunacy. In this society, one who does not share the insanity of his neighbors is stigmatized as insane. So they thought that marriage with a suitable girl would help him to get back his normal state of mind. When this suggestion was put forward, Sri Ramakrishna gave his willing consent, seeing in it also the hand of providence. When later on the wife, a pure maiden of 16, came to her husband at the Dakshineswar temple where he was practicing his spiritual austerities, the saint knelt down before her and said, "The Divine Mother has shown me that every woman is her manifestation. Therefore, I look upon all women as the images of the Divine Mother. I also think of you as such, but I am at your disposal. If you want, you can drag me down to the worldly plane." This girl, during her childhood, used to pray to God saying, "O God, make my character as white and fragrant as yonder tuberose. There is a stain even on the moon, but make my life stainless." In the twinkling of an eye, she understood the state of her husband's mind and said with humility, "I do not want to drag you down from your spiritual heights. All that I want is the privilege of living near you as your attendant and disciple." Henceforth, the two souls lived together in the temple garden as the sharers of many divine visions. Not for a moment would either of them think of any worldly relationship. One night, the wife, while massaging her husband's body, asked him, "How do you look upon me?" Sri Ramakrishna replied, without a moment's hesitation, "The mother who is worshipped in the temple is the mother who has given birth to this body, who is now staying in this temple garden, and it is she again who is massaging my feet at the present moment. Verily, I always look upon you as the visible representation of the blissful mother." Thus, Sri Ramakrishna showed that the mind of a man dwelling in God is totally free from all sex relationship. The same mind which feels a physical urge at the lower level sees the vision of the divine at its higher level. Lust is not inherent in an object, it is only an idea of the impure mind. Hitherto, Sri Ramakrishna's vision was limited to a personal deity whom he worshipped alternately as the compassionate mother or the all-loving father. In this conception, God has human attributes, which according to the religious philosophy of India is a lower conception of truth. There is a transcendental aspect of God which defies all human definitions. It is beyond names and forms, but is termed existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Realizing this, the aspirant transcends the world of multiplicity and merges himself in the unity of awareness. Sri Ramakrishna wanted to realize that aspect of the divine as well. It is a strange phenomenon of his spiritual experience that whenever he wanted to pursue a particular spiritual thought, a suitable teacher of his own accord used to come to Dakshineswar. Thus there came to him a monk by the name of Totapuri. This teacher had renounced the world at an early age, did not believe in any worldly relationship, had no earthly possessions, would not stay at one place for more than 3 days for fear of creating a new attachment, and had realized the highest truth, which the philosophers describe as unknown and unknowable for ordinary minds. With the help of this teacher, Sri Ramakrishna realized in 3 days the truth which is beyond names and forms and which the Vedas designate as Brahman the Absolute. In this realization, Sri Ramakrishna found the identity of soul and God. Subsequently, he practiced the instructions of Christianity and Islam and arrived at the same conclusion. Thus, he demonstrated by his own life and inner experience the truth of his forefathers as stated in the Vedas. Reality is one, sages call it by various names. Sri Ramakrishna also used to say in his own simple and inimitable way, different opinions are but different paths, but the goal is one and the same. The rituals and ceremonies found in all great ancient religions are external but necessary steps of spiritual growth. They are indispensable for most aspirants during the lower stages of their evolution, but drop off when the divine love awakens in their heart. Having attained the goal of human birth, namely the realization of God, Sri Ramakrishna became eager to share with all this vision of joy and peace. All spiritual experiences ultimately end in mysticism, but this inspired prophet of the 19th century did not enter into a cave or lead the life of a recluse to enjoy for himself the bliss of his meditation. He realized that he had become an instrument in the hand of God to help his fellow human beings. Thus, he wanted one and all to partake the joy of his realization. Many a time he prayed thus to the Divine Mother, "Do not make me, O Mother, a cross-grained, pain-hugging recluse. I want to enjoy the world, seeing in it thy manifestation." Drawn by the aroma of his transfigured existence, people began to flock to him from far and near. Men and women, young and old, scientists and agnostics, Christians and Sikhs, people irrespective of their race, creed, caste or religious affiliation came to him and felt themselves spiritually uplifted according to their inner evolution. Yet Sri Ramakrishna was no preacher of the ordinary type. He did not move from the little village of Dakshineswar, did not mount upon a public platform to preach his message, and did not advertise himself in the press. He used to say that the bees come of their own accord in search of honey when the flower is in full bloom. Among those who came to the saint was a young man who subsequently became world famous as Swami Vivekananda. Narendranath, as he was then known, represented the spirit of modern times, skeptical, inquisitive, demanding evidence for everything, and yet alert and eager to learn truth. Sri Ramakrishna was the embodiment of his ancient religion, self-assured, serene, and at peace with himself as a result of his experience of divine wisdom. Sri Ramakrishna stood at the confluence of these two streams of thought, the ancient and the modern. In answer to the first question of this young man, "Sir, have you seen God?" he gave the emphatic reply that he had seen him. Though resisting him at every point, ultimately Narendranath became his disciple. Sri Ramakrishna, with the infinite love of a mother and the infinite patience of a teacher, initiated him step by step into the deepest mysteries of spiritual life. It may be mentioned here that the teacher did not impose upon the student any blind faith nor demand from him enforced allegiance. Sri Ramakrishna, through his superior intellect, was able to satisfy the demands of his disciples' inquisitive mind. Swami Vivekananda, under the direction of his teacher, became the leader of a group of young men who later on took the vow of dedicating their lives to the realization of God and service to humanity. For a quarter of a century, this God-man preached his gospel of God life. Never did he refuse anyone the solace of his instructions so long as the seeker was earnest about them. He said, "Where will you find God except in man? Man is the highest manifestation of the divine. I will give up 20,000 such bodies to help one man. It is glorious to help even one man." During this period of his spiritual ministration, never a word of condemnation escaped from his blessed lips. He was incapable of seeing evil in others. Bowing before even the fallen woman whom society condemns as impure, he would say, "Thou art also the manifestation of the Divine Mother. In one form thou art standing in the street, and in another form thou art worshipped in the temple. I salute thee." As a result of his constant teaching, he was attacked with cancer of the throat. Even when it became almost impossible for him to swallow liquid food, he could not send away any eager enquirer without some words of solace. During this period, a yogi remarked that Sri Ramakrishna can cure himself of his ailment by his yoga powers, by concentrating his mind on his throat. Quick came the reply, "How can my mind, which has been given to God, be directed again to this cage of flesh and blood?" Swami Vivekananda begged him to pray to God for the cure of his ailment. Such a prayer for his own physical body was an impossibility for Sri Ramakrishna. Yet, at the earnest importunity of his disciple, he relaxed. After a while, he said to Vivekananda, "Yes, at your request, I prayed to the Mother. O Mother, on account of pain, I cannot eat anything through this mouth. Please relieve my pain, if it be thy pleasure." She showed you all to me and said, "Why are you not eating through all these mouths?" This is a demonstration of how the realization of God frees the soul from the limitations of the body. At last, on August 16th, 1886, Sri Ramakrishna, uttering the sacred name of his beloved God, entered into a state of spiritual ecstasy from which his mind never came back to the mortal plane of existence. Thus, there lived in India a man who saw God face to face. Having realized the fountain of divine love, he radiated love for all without any national or geographical limits. Every particle of his being was filled with God consciousness. Though living in this world, he seemed to be a man of the other world. The man in him was completely changed into God. Of such the Vedas declare, "He who realizes God becomes one with God." By the vision of the divine, man himself becomes divine. The life and teachings of this God-man has a tremendous significance for the people of modern times. The essence of the scientific method consists of experimentation, observation, and verification. The science of religion, called yoga by the Hindus, is based upon this method. Sri Ramakrishna, as a great yogi, experimented with the spiritual laws without accepting them in blind faith. He observed his own reactions and came to certain conclusions. The Hindus challenged others also to verify these by their own experimentations and observations. Religion is not occultism or so-called mysticism, but a higher way of life. God, Sri Ramakrishna has pointed out, is not the monopoly of any religion or creed, but the common property of all. He is the loving Father of mankind. He is not only an extra-cosmic being, but he permeates the entire universe as intelligence and consciousness. He is present everywhere, from the blade of grass to Brahma as the inmost essence of all. He is the life and substratum of all entities, from the atom to the highest prophet. Like the same infinite expanse of water forms the basis of the froth, bubbles, and mountain high waves. The difference between man and between other animate and inanimate objects lies in the degree of divine manifestation. When God is involved, he is the grain of sand. When he is fully evolved, he is Jesus Christ. Through our strivings and struggles, we are approaching the central truth. Art, science, and religion are but different expressions of the same truth, but one can understand it only when one has realized the unity of existence. Has God any form, or is he formless? God is both, with and without form, and yet transcends both. He alone can say what else he is. God with form and God without form are like ice and water. When water freezes into ice, it has form. When the same ice is melted into water, all form is lost. God with form and God without form are not two different beings. He who is with form is also without form. To a devotee, the worshipper of a personal God, he manifests himself in various forms. Just think of a shoreless ocean, an infinite expanse of water, no land visible in any direction, only here and there are visible blocks of ice formed by intense cold. Similarly, under the intensifying influence of the deep devotion of his worshipper, the infinite reduces himself as it were into the finite and appears before him as a being with form. Again, as on the appearance of the sun, the ice melts away, so with the awakening of knowledge, God with form melts away into the formless. The water of the ocean, when viewed from a distance, appears to have a dark blue color, but becomes colorless when taken in the hand. In the same way, God is also attributed with a definite color and complexion from a distance, but he is the attributeless truth when the devotee merges in him. No one can ever put any finality upon God's nature. It is beyond the scope of our relative mind. We grasp only a limited aspect of God according to our mental development. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that everything in the world, the words of saints, the statements of the scriptures, has been polluted like food thrown from the mouth, but God alone is unpolluted, as no human tongue has been able to describe fully what he is. His nature can be known only in the silent depth of our heart. Again, Sri Ramakrishna said that once a doll made of salt wanted to measure the depth of the ocean, but no sooner did it touch the water than it melted into the ocean. How could it tell about its depth? In the same way, neither the mind nor words can express the real nature of God when the aspirant has merged in him. A text of the Vedas says, the words come back with the mind vainly trying to express what truth is. What is the relation of God to man? This is the moot question of religion. Sri Ramakrishna said in a simple way that when we consider ourselves as physical beings, then God is the master and the father, and we are his servants or children. When we look upon ourselves as embodied souls, then God is the universal soul and we are its emanations. Like fire and its sparks, God and man possess the same qualities and attributes. But when we think of ourselves as spirit, then we are identical with God, the one and the same spirit, birthless, deathless, causeless, and infinite. The four cardinal points of Sri Ramakrishna's teachings are the oneness of existence, divinity of man, unity of God, and the harmony of religions. The entire universe is one, not only as a stretch of matter or idea, but also as indivisible spirit. The multiplicity of names and forms created by our ignorance vanishes at the dawn of divine knowledge. The cherished treasures of human progress, such as love, understanding, unselfishness, and other ethical principles, can be explained only from the standpoint of this unity. Otherwise, there is no room for fellow feeling in a world of multiplicity governed by lifeless natural laws. This unity comprehends all objects, animate and inanimate, as well as men and angels. Man is divine by nature, either as created in the image of God, or as his spark, or as one with him. The essential nature of man can never lose this perfection. There is no such thing as sin which can change the quality of the soul. The wicked action of a man may impose a veil upon his divine nature, but can never destroy it. God exists in us as potentia and possibility. An action is called good or moral, which helps us to rediscover this hidden divinity. An action is called immoral or bad, which conjures before us the appearance of manifoldness. The experiences we gather at the physical, mental, or aesthetic level do not belong to our real soul. They may be called at best a mixture of truth and falsehood. Through this inscrutable experience, we behave as if we were corporeal beings. We have hypnotized ourselves into thinking that we are imperfect and limited, and that we exist in time and space subject to the law of causation. The aim of religion is to de-hypnotize ourselves and make us aware of our divine heritage. God is one and indivisible. The different gods of religion and mythology are but different aspects of the Absolute as comprehended by finite human minds. Father in heaven, just and moral governor, eternal spirit, nirvana or the extinction of desires, light, law, etc. are but different facets of the one Godhead, and He is all these and infinitely more than the human mind can think. The God that is defined as the goal of different religions is only the highest reading of the Absolute by the finite human mind and expressed through imperfect human language. The greatest contribution of Sri Ramakrishna to the modern world, torn by theological quarrels, is the harmony of religions. Each great ancient religion has three steps, namely ritual, mythology, and philosophy. The first two are the externals of religion, and philosophy is its basis. There can never be any uniformity in rituals and mythologies. These are the externals of religion made concrete for the grasp of ordinary minds. They are to be given up when the soul, through its purity and discipline, is able to comprehend the essence of religion. Religious quarrels arise when we insist that the externals of religion are to be kept forever. As Swami Vivekananda used to say, a man must be born in a church, but he must not die in a church. There never has been my religion or your religion, my national religion or your national religion, but there is only one eternal religion, of which different religions are different manifestations to suit different temperaments. What is the utility of religious experiences in our daily and practical life? If man were only an animal with eating, drinking, and sleeping propensities, satisfied with a little display of reason and the solution of some intellectual problems, then perhaps there would be no meaning in his excursion into the realm of spirit. But the infinite nature of the human soul can never be happy with the finite experiences of life. Through the finite experiences, we are trying to reach the infinite. The whole life of man is the play of the infinite in the finite. Therefore, any experience of life without the touch of the divine is barren and futile. The drab and grey of life can be illumined by the sunrise glow of divine wisdom. It invests life with a new meaning and dignity. What does it avail a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? Nothing else matters if the touch of God is felt in our daily activities. And what else does matter if we do not feel that indwelling presence in our everyday action? Mind without the touch of the divine roams aimlessly in the blind alleys of the world. Therefore, Sri Ramakrishna said, do whatever you please with the knowledge of God. Mind, uninspired by divine wisdom, is like milk that gets easily mixed up with the water of the world. But if by churning one transforms milk into butter, then it floats on the water. In the same way, we are to purify our mind with divine knowledge, and then if it dwells in the world, it will not be polluted by worldliness. Again, as our saints used to say, as long as we spin around holding fast to a post, there is no danger of our falling to the ground. In the same way, we are to work in the world with our mind steadfastly devoted to God. There is no danger of losing ourselves in confusion. Be like a wet nurse, Sri Ramakrishna said, who takes care of her master's children as her own, but in her heart of hearts knows that she has no claim upon them. So also think that you are but the trustees and guardians of your people, but the real master is God himself. We are all instruments in the hands of God, who has assigned to us our respective duties for the discipline of our hearts. Religious life does not mean the shirking of duties or avoidance of responsibilities. Life itself is religion, true to this ideal of its patron saint. The Ramakrishna mission has the twin methods of discipline, namely work and worship, or rather, its members say that work is worship. One day, when young Swami Vivekananda begged his master to grant him the boon of a spiritual ecstasy by which the disciple could keep his mind above for 4 or 5 days together, coming down occasionally to the physical plane for a few minutes to eat some morsels of food, Sri Ramakrishna answered reproachfully, "Why are you so anxious to see God with your eyes closed? Can't you see Him with your eyes open? Worship God through suffering humanity." Thus, we find that Sri Ramakrishna's teachings act like a powerful searchlight by which we could see through the mummeries and externals of religion and discern its innermost essence. This prophet of the 19th century did not found any cult, nor did he show a new path to salvation. When, under the relentless sledgehammer blows of modern thought, our cherished ideals of the time-honored ancient faiths began to crumble, Sri Ramakrishna, by his own life, demonstrated the truth and validity of the prophets and saviors of the past, and thus restored the falling edifice of religion on a new and more secure foundation. Jai Sri Ramakrishna.